Ever wanted to explore a vast alien world with a laser cannon strapped to your arm and a suit of power armor while you can morph into a ball to fit into tight spaces? That's one way to describe Metroid Dread. Another would be an action-packed, exploration-filled return to form for the originating franchise of the Metroidvania genre. So let's dive in and see what the heck is Metroid Dread for the Nintendo Switch. After a quick recap of prior events, it has after all been 19 years since the last entry in the story came out. The game kicks off with Samus being sent to the planet ZDR to find out what happened to some robots called Emmy after they were dispatched to investigate the source of a video showing an ex-parasite alive there. Samus makes her way to the depths of the colony, only to be assaulted by a warrior in armor similar to hers. In this fight, she loses a lot of her abilities and wakes to find the way back up destroyed, her goal now being to get off the planet alive. The use of cutscenes and Samus speaking with more action than words is very well done, and I applaud Mercury's team for what I consider nailing Samus as a character in both tone and ability, which is probably the most important part when it comes to the story in these games, so hats off to you guys there, well done. The story is good, and certainly gives us an ending to the current Metroid saga, but it does admittedly drag a little at points with you being stopped by your ship's AI, Adam, to give you information. That does come with good reason, but your mileage on that may vary, however. Metroid games are about combat and exploration, but this game adds stealth sections as well. The Emmy robots Samus was sent here to find are now hunting you, and boy does it sell that feeling of dread in the title. They're locked off in these fairly large sprawling sections, and these are marked with special doors that, while inside the territory of, will lock down until you get the Emmy off your tail. These sections are tense, exciting, don't appear scripted, and honestly I found them to be some of the coolest parts of the game. Samus herself controls very fluidly, with the ability to do limited aiming while on the move, and when holding down the left shoulder button, she stands in place and has a 360-degree aiming arc. This took only a little bit of getting used to, but seeing as how you can do it when hanging from objects, it became very versatile very quickly. The new slide mechanic was also a welcome addition. Whether it's to quickly escape the Emmy hot on your tail, get through tight spaces, or quickly dodge an attack, it fast became something I found myself using a lot through my playthrough. The counter mechanic from Samus Returns is back, but the enemies aren't as bullet spongy as that title. Killing them using it yields more health and missile pickups, which adds a risk-reward layer to it. This includes the ability to counter certain boss moves, and even the Emmy themselves, which I managed to do first time playing live on stream. Gotcha! The counters feel really satisfying to pull off, and I honestly enjoyed their inclusion in the game. Each boss encounter was tough, but at no point did I feel they were completely unfair. When I lost, it always felt like I had made a mistake, and not the game being unreasonable. That said, the base difficulty of the game is no joke, and some may find the bosses a bit much to handle, but with each game over being a lesson, I learned to overcome and eventually defeat them. The regular enemies in general hit hard as well, especially after a certain point in the game. Luckily, the game does have a decent amount of ammo refill and energy recharge stations to get you back in tip-top shape. Despite its difficulty, the game is also very generous with its checkpoints, setting them right before bosses, major events, and the Emmy areas. There are also plenty of save rooms throughout the game, with even one-use rooms like map rooms and such becoming save rooms too after their use. As far as Samus's abilities go, you get most of the ones you would usually expect from prior games, but as a veteran Metroid fan, the new abilities Samus gained in this title were very welcome, and some quite creative. Exploration would be a pain in the butt if maps weren't a thing. Luckily, Metroid Dread has one of the best I have seen in the genre. Color-coded rooms, big icons for different major points of interest, markers that you can add yourself, it highlighting the general area a secret is in as well. These are great, and one of the biggest pluses here is the map updating to show when a new ability you have acquired will let you through things blocking your path that prior were just a question mark on the map. While this game isn't pushing the boundaries of graphics technology, it has a solid style that I found pleasing to the eye, especially where the lighting is concerned. Samus entering a dark room really highlights the lighting of her suit, and to be honest, it looks really cool. The various biomes have quite a bit of life to them in some areas. Critters scurrying about, machines working in the background. It was very interesting to see, and made it feel very lived in, as well as could warn you about things to be expected ahead sometimes too if you paid attention. The Emmy areas also used different lighting and film grain to make sure you knew when you were in their territory, which is a great visual cue and set the atmosphere back to tense and dreading them catching you as soon as you stepped in them. The loading screens when fast traveling have subtle animations that felt like Samus was taking a quick breather before returning to action, which I appreciated, given that they weren't exactly the quickest of load times. The detail on Samus' suit in particular is quite a sight to behold. The solid metal reflecting, the intricate bio-weaved alloys that make up her power armor look fantastic, and it only gets more interesting with each suit upgrade. The visual clues regarding what kinds of environmental hazards lay beyond doors was also a really nice touch. Glowing heat waves or frosted air emanating from around the door before you went through. No more getting hurt going into a door to find out whether or not it's bad on the other side, costing you health in prior Metroid titles. Adding to that, the environmental details for the water were amazing at some points. Spin jumping created bubbles, or how it changed the hue of Samus's beams to more of a green color when submerged and such were neat details that wouldn't necessarily be the first things you think of when making a game, but they thought of it here. Seeing all this in motion is a real sight to behold. The game holds a solid 60 FPS for 99% of the time, with very rare drops, but nothing that would ever affect your gameplay. Some of the environmental effects and backdrop effects looked to be running at about 30 frames per second, but if that helped it keep the game running smooth control-wise, it's a reasonable trade for how smooth it feels playing and controlling Samus. The music does the job, but there aren't really any tracks that would get stuck in my head in the way that Super Metroid's Brinstar theme or Metroid Prime's Phendrana Drifts would. However, music brought in from prior games is used at the right moments, and the new version sounded fantastic. The Emmy areas in particular do stand out in their own audible way. The tone shifts, and the more subtle music plays along with some soft beeping noises that make you feel like you're being hunted by the killer robots themselves. Sound was also handy when it came to figuring out what hurt enemies, with a tink tink sound when something, usually the basic beam, couldn't hurt a foe. Came in handy, especially during certain boss fights. The sound design, however, is overall superb. The way the music and sound muffles as Samus heads underwater, her steps on the different terrain types, the humming of a fully charged arm cannon, and the impact of the melee counter were very satisfying. I did, however, find the missiles lacked the oomph I felt they should have, at least until they got an upgrade later on. Here's a little pros and cons list that may help if you're on the fence. Pro: fluid controls. Samus has never felt this good to kick butt with. Con: it would be a huge mistake if I didn't bring up the absurd lack of options. There's brightness, and you can look at your controls but not change them. That's it. Not even volume sliders for music and sound effects, which is abysmal. Pro: the reloading save or continuing loading screens actually have helpful tips that helped me out personally during my playthrough. Con: the game can be quite difficult at points. No easy mode may mean some people miss out on finishing this title. Pro: the game is challenging, and that can be a big selling point to some, hence why this falls on both sides. I enjoyed the challenge, for example. Con: the game is a bit on the short side. If you are looking for a 60-hour title, this probably isn't it. Pro: the game, however, is very replayable, offers a lot of challenge in a lot of interesting ways, and will be played by speedrunners for ages to come. If you like replaying your games to get better at them and find new things, this is definitely a game for you. Con. Adam does show up a bit much at times, and this may annoy some players more than others. It didn't bother me too much, and his reason for being there makes sense, but it is worth noting. Pro. This is the first 2D Metroid game sequel in 19 years. That's one heck of a pro for me. While it may seem minor to some developers that worked on the game weren't even credited. Whether they left the company and, went on to move to other things should be irrelevant. Credit your developers. They make these things a reality, and when their assets appear in-game, and they get to see that, and they're not in the credits, that's really crap. Just don't do it. Bad, Mercury Steam. Bad. Metroid Dread is a fantastic return to form for the franchise, and I'm happy to say that it stands up there with the greats in the Metroidvania genre that have released during its absence, such as the Ori games, Guacamelee, Axiom Verge, and what was that other one? Oh yeah, Hollow Knight. With what I think is a satisfying end to the current Metroid saga, I'm interested to see where they take Samus on her next adventure. All that said, I give Metroid Dread a solid thumbs up, and I'll see you all next mission.